This is 7th Generation Warfare, and I'm your current host, John Nelson. In this episode, we'll be continuing to look at Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication number 1, Warfighting. And in this episode, we'll be talking about violence and danger. Violence and danger. War is among the greatest horrors known to humanity. It should never be romanticized. I don't disagree, but I think the Department of Defense likes to spend money in Hollywood and in video games doing exactly just that. So war gets romanticized plenty, which is why as a teenager I thought it'd be exciting to go to war. This means the means of war is force, applied in the form of organized violence. It is through the use of violence or the credible threat of violence that we compel our enemy to do our will. So in 6th Generation Warfare, there is no violence. It's really just a war against yourself, against your mind, to determine what your will is and separate it from the people who, are willing to use violence or force against you. They might have put some of these ideas into your head of how you should live your life, what you should do. So 6th Generation Warfare is about erasing all that. And 7th Generation Warfare, again, is nonviolent warfare in order to secure the will of our children. And so that doesn't really apply, but we see, in the language used that that we compel our enemy to do our will. And I think a healthy 6th Generation Warfare will lead you to the position that you don't need to, nor should you want, nor should you seek to compel anyone to do your will. So this is where we get outside of war and we grow as a species or whatever. Violence is an essential element of war, and its immediate result is bloodshed, destruction, and suffering. Not in the type of war that I'm looking to fight. While the magnitude of violence may vary with the objects and means of war, the violent essence of war will never change. Well, I'm redefining it. Any study of war that neglects this basic truth is misleading or incomplete. Yeah, I might be misleading a little bit. It's just a fun concept I came up with. It's not going to be incomplete, though. Since war is a violent enterprise, danger is ever present. Since war is a human phenomenon, fear, the human reaction to danger, has significant impact to the conduct of war. Yeah, that's certainly true. There's fear is probably one of the biggest things that goes into 6th Generation Warfare, and it's so easy in society to push aside and say, oh no, I'm not afraid. Fear, I don't think fear is as obvious as a lot of people think. There's like phobia, like arachnophobia, that you like jump and scream if you see a spider. Which, speaking of war, when we were in Afghanistan, we like to play the board game Risk. We play it a lot. And there's a guy on our team who was afraid of spiders. And one of the docs, not caring for the troops, killed a camel spider and put it in the color pieces that this lieutenant liked to play as. And so he opened the box and saw a camel spider, and he legitimately blacked out and had a complete fear response. Just a fun story about fear and phobia. But I don't think most people think fear has to be a strong reaction. Fear is really subtle. Fear gets in there and it's like, you don't have to do it. Better if you don't. Or what if? Well, let's think about this. Let's not do that. Let's not. Hold on. Fear is subtle. and it's just enough that it gets you to not act or gets you to do something you otherwise wouldn't. So I think as you fight sixth generation warfare, just redefining things that you know don't think reach the threshold of fear, it might still be fear. Everybody feels fear. I assume that's true. I can't speak for others. Fear contributes to the corrosion of will. Yep. I just was explaining that. Leaders must foster the courage to overcome fear, both individually and within their units. Now that's good, because how do we get our children to recognize fear when they're afraid? I think first you have to be super in tune with your children to understand who they are and what they actually want. And then when you see their behavior not quite adding up, and you see them not doing something that they otherwise would do, or doing something that they otherwise wouldn't do, and you see the stimulus that went on just before that decision was made, you might be able to piece together that there's an element of fear in their behavior. And so discovering that and helping them have the courage to overcome it, I think would be extremely helpful in seventh generation warfare. Courage is not the absence of fear, rather it is the strength to overcome fear. Yeah, I like that definition. Yeah, we're all going to be tested with fear in various ways, and those who can just trample on their fear and get over it, those are the courageous ones. Leaders must study fear, understand it, and be prepared to cope with it. I guess we have to add we need to research fear a little bit more in seventh generation warfare so that we can understand it better and learn to cope with it better. Courage and fear are often situational rather than uniform, meaning that people experience them differently at different times and in different situations. Like fear, courage takes many forms. From the stoic courage born of reasoned calculation to the fierce courage born of heightened emotion. Experience under fire generally increases confidence, as can realistic training by lessening the mystique of combat. Strong leadership, which earns the respect and trust of subordinates, can limit the effects of fear. Leaders should develop unit cohesion and esprit and the self-confidence of individuals within their units. In this environment, Marine unwillingness to violate the respect and trust of peers can overcome personal fear. Yeah, doing things for others, overcoming the personal fear for respect of peers. But yeah, it's really just all about identifying fear in multiple scenarios, and this is why I think seventh generation warfare has to have, that element where you encourage your kids to go and experience the world in some sort of way so that they can get outside their comfort zone. If your children live one it might be somebody trying to start a seventh generation warfare might think that they just have to keep their kids protected, but really that's actually a sense of fear in one's own mind that if you don't protect your kids, they're going to somehow get corrupted and turn out wicked. I think the best way to keep a seventh generation war sustained is for some lessons to be learned by every generation. I don't know what those lessons are. I don't know that it's really necessarily my place to say what those lessons are. Obviously, in seventh generation warfare, we're trying to not have our children have to relive all our mistakes and learn all the lessons the hard way. Hopefully we can give them tools to overcome the obstacles that we faced, but they still need to be put in trying situations that will certainly test their fear, so that they can build that courage and overcome and understand how fear arises within them, so that they can in turn teach the next generation. So I hope that makes sense. This is 7th Generation Warfare. This was a continued look into Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication number 1, Warfighting, and this one was titled Violence and Danger.